Daniel, when are you gonna make another one of your shitty reviews? Your fans are getting mad.
David, they're not shitty. I've been having a lot of stress lately, trying to figure out who this imposter is who's tricking people into thinking that he's me.
Hey guys, it's DStecks here with another Sonichu review of what the retard's name is here. I'm gonna be reviewing it for bad. It's pretty shit.
I feel like I'm on the cusp of a major breakthrough.
Daniel, you're stupid.
No, I'm not.
My brain is plastic, sugar-coated magic, twisted and a turning and a burning for you. My brain is plastic, flimsy and it's tragic. You always said that misery was built for two.
The cover to Sonichu 7 depicts Magi-Chan holding his hands up while the Sonichu balls levitate. Behind him are a collection of images from Chris's life. Something weird I only noticed a couple days ago, and something you may not be able to see depending on the resolution you're watching this at, is that Magi-Chan has a noticeably lower pixel density than the rest of the cover. In English, he's been enlarged in Photoshop. Chris's normally crisp lines appear pixelated, possibly suggesting that Magi-Chan was enlarged a lot. I find this interesting because Chris's usual MO is to just scan the drawings into his computer, replace the dialogue in Photoshop, and that's it. The original unedited art can briefly be seen here in Chris's official video book of the issue. As far as I know, this is the most extensively Chris has ever used Photoshop in his art, except of course for One Lucky Dog. The cover is labeled as having been drawn on March 5th, 2007, but the issue as a whole took well over a year to write. Of course, that's not going to come up until the next review, so just keep that in mind for now. The comic begins with Sonichu, Magi-Chan, and Chris-Chan in Episode 15, Time for a Ball. We open in Manchester High School in November of 2007, where Chris is hanging out despite having graduated almost a decade prior. Megan, I wanted to thank you for hooking me up with Magi, says Bionic the Hedgehog. Our first date was dud. We had fun, and she called me for a second date. I'm happy. Below, we see a smiley face in the speech bubble, because sometimes it's hard to convey emotion when the reader can't see the character's face. Oh. Meg Chen is truly a sweet gal, pal. Oh, how I yearn to hug her. Unfortunately, she will only let me hold her hand now and then. Well, maybe time will...
Okay, let's get serious for a moment. While I know this isn't universally the case, I do know that my viewership is composed primarily of teenage boys, and probably weirdos if you know what Sonichu is. So, here's a bit of life advice. If a girl tells you that she doesn't want you to hug her, that is never going to change. It's not happening. It's not.
Magaji arrives in the gym. Hey, B-Hog, are you ready for paintball and love potion? I'm raring for a big mess.
Normally you'd have to watch Japanese pornography if you're raring for a big mess of love potion.
And maybe, if you're lucky, I'll let you kiss me at the end, winky face. A kiss after this date, Bionic says, and after the third, wee-hee, yay-hey.
Okay, so, something you should probably know is that Chris has idiosyncratic ideas about dating, largely because he has never dated. And so all his ideas about dating come from the equivalent of Cosmo and Dr. Phil. What Bionic is referring to here is Chris's belief that the third date will always culminate in sex. Always. It's generally thought that Chris picked up some advice somewhere that sex probably shouldn't happen before the third date, and this got mutated in his head. Speaking from general knowledge and from my personal experience as an Aspie, autistics like to be able to define the world in terms of concrete rules. And, of course, Chris would latch on to anything that looks like a guaranteed way to get laid. As would apparently many sad, desperate men if dubious banner ads are anything to go by.
Bionic and Magaji leave the gym hand in hand. You smell good, Bionic says.
Bionic, you don't need to bullshit her. She's literally a skunk.
The sight of a happy couple that Chris was previously happy for suddenly gives Chris an anxiety attack. Then Megan, sensing his massive unease, holds his hand in an attempt to comfort him. This physical contact is enough to immediately snap him out of it, which understandably weirds Megan out. Okay, let's go see what Magi-Chan and Sonichu have learned in their search, Megan says, still clearly uncomfortable from Chris's outburst. Aw, she had a little too much excitement, so she changed the subject, Chris thinks. That's so cute. She truly cares about me.
What? He's saying that she's changing the subject because she got too excited from touching his hand? I mean, she's not blushing or anything, like you'd think she would be if Chris were really trying to imply that. Like, that's the weird thing for me here. This is not an actual conversation that happened. This is entirely Chris's creation, and he still comes off like a creepy weirdo reading too much into Megan's actions. That he wrote!
We return to find Sonichu and Magi-Chan blathering a bunch of exposition that takes up roughly half the page. To summarize, the next Sonichu ball was here at one point, because the Sonichu balls can travel through time. It has to be in the past at this very location. The question is, who came into contact with it? If we can find the person or animal who was here at that time, I can calculate the precise date and second of the contact. Okay, so I don't want to get too deep into this, because time travel is a clusterfuck even when the writer isn't a moron, but there's some serious holes here. The Sonichu balls led them to this spot because the next ball was here over a decade ago. Why wouldn't it lead them to where it currently is? In fact, basically all of the plot holes here come from Chris not realizing that the past eventually becomes the present, and that the next Sonichu ball is presumably still out there somewhere. Also, Magi-Chan needs the person or animal that the ball came into contact with, so it's super freaking lucky that that person is Chris and not a rat or something that died a year later. Chris walks up to them and utters the famous words, "Hey guys, what's the update?" Megan thinks to herself, what a mood recovery, kind of a Goku get 'em attitude. Magi-Chan begins to realize that it was Chris who came into contact with the Sonichu ball. The vision is clearing up, he says, while making a gesture that I think is supposed to be pointing at Chris, but just looks like he's trying to flash the peace sign, but his middle finger is just broken. Chris has a flashback to the moment he first imagined Bionic the Hedgehog, and suddenly both he and Magi-Chan have concave faces. That's it, Magi-Chan says. Approximately November 13th, 1996, during a scheduled basketball practice at 2:31:29 p.m. Wait, how does he know the time to the second if he prefaced this whole statement with approximately? The Curstal bonked Christian Weston Chandler on the head at the exact moment that locker slammed open in his imagination. That's crazy, Megan says. At best, that's only a random access guess.
I spent thousands of dollars on a college education to be able to tell you that random access does not mean what Chris thinks it means.
Actually, he is correct, Chris says. I remember being struck on my old bean as I imagined Mighty reclining against a locker, as the situation was read from a Beer Street novel from my favorite author, R.L. Stine, my favorite author, whose name I can't spell. At that moment, at random, that locker door slammed open, and Bionic the Hedgehog entered my world. I had thought it was a mistakenly thrown basketball. This corrects that theory. I feel as silly as the time I temporarily gained weight, became stupid, and went to watch television at Ghost Command.
So no change then.
Seth MacFarlane, here is a silly sketch idea for a Family Guy episode I fully approve for you to use as you see fit.
Hey, so, shooting these reviews is always a little bit weird. You don't know what's going to happen. I had a joke planned here where I was going to sarcastically be all like, oh yeah, because Seth MacFarlane's obviously reading Sonichu. But I'm working with a new camera now, which is why this video is in 1080p, and I ran into that classic hit record when you thought it was stopped, and stopped when you thought you were recording problem. And so I thought I'd shot that joke, but I actually hadn't. That footage didn't exist. And so, just literally minutes before I was going to reshoot that joke word for word, I realized that when Chris wrote this, nobody was reading Sonichu at all, let alone someone famous. Like, this was written the tail end of 2007. The start, it dates it to November. This, what I'm showing you now on the screen, is a post from the Something Awful forums dated October 26th, 2007. And my research indicates that this is the earliest, this is the beginning of the whole Chris Chan saga. This was where he got introduced to the internet. And this was about like a week or two before Chris was writing this. So it wasn't even like he was getting attention right away. It started really small and sort of expanded, and there is absolutely no evidence whatsoever that anybody was following Sonichu before Chris Chan became a thing to make fun of. I think this really shows the depth of Chris's delusion that when he had absolutely no evidence that anybody but him in the entire world was actually had any idea about Sonichu, he put this here. He was like, "Hi, Seth MacFarlane, like, use this sketch." I mean, it's not like he didn't basically get the tone exactly right of what a Family Guy joke would be like, but you get the idea.
What follows is one of the most surreal sequences in Sonichu, and that's saying something. The whole thing is a spoof of the Filmation Ghostbusters cartoon, and if you've never heard of it, I'll give you the quick rundown. This company, Filmation, made a TV show in the 70s called The Ghostbusters, of no relation to the classic comedy of the same name. It was such quality programming that it ran for 15 whole episodes, aka less episodes than Shasta McNasty, The Chevy Chase Show, Joni Loves Chachi, and Homeboys in Outer Space. However, Columbia Pictures did have to pay Filmation for the rights to name their film Ghostbusters, but Filmation still had the original intellectual property. When the film became a blockbuster hit, Filmation quickly greenlit a cartoon adaptation of the original, long-forgotten TV series, to cash in on people mistakenly tuning in expecting to see a cartoon of the movie. That's why the actual Ghostbusters cartoon was called The Real Ghostbusters, kind of like The Real Superman in Holy Musical Batman. Chris, for whatever unknown reason, was a big fan of the fake Ghostbusters cartoon as a kid, and here inserts a reference to it as if it was some kind of obvious pop culture touchstone. It ends with him taking a shit in a car. Back in the realm of sanity, Magi-Chan says, "That's settled. I can ensphere you, me, and Sonichu, and take the three of us counterclockwise around the world, thus sending us back in time."
Okay, first of all, the Earth already revolves in a counterclockwise direction. So, even if this plan wasn't completely moronic, clockwise is the direction you'd want to go. Second of all, your plan is ripping off Superman while not understanding how the time travel in Superman made sense. Chris appears to be under the impression that a New York to London flight would travel back in time.
And then Chris from the Family Guy sketch shows up out of the blue. Is it possible that I may keep this outfit? It's hard to find clothes that fit me. Sure, no problem, Sammy. We may need you for another sketch in the future anyway. Your medal was not only built bigger than the original, while it was painted with the legal words on the back, it lacks the additional writings and symbols, so there is no mistaking yours for mine. Then Magi-Chan enspheres them, I guess, and then we get even more science gobbledygook that would make Star Trek gaggle. Viewing from the outside in, this psychic orb is invisible, and so are we three, as long as we stay within it. Sonichu, run backwards. Why? Asks Sonichu quite reasonably. To revolve the sphere in reverse, to go back in time. Okay, what? Is this a fucking Looney Tunes cartoon now? No, this is more like Looney Tunes meets Time Cube. Running backwards to go back in time. What would happen if Sonichu just turned around and ran forward? Would that work? Oh my god, why am I putting more thought into this than Chris did? The next and final page of the episode immediately contradicts Magi-Chan's exposition. The invisible time sphere arrives in the school gym we literally just left, and Kelly Andes, a real-life friend of Chris, somehow immediately recognizes him. Also, you might have noticed that this is the end of the episode, and the plot has only now just started. Thanks, Chris. To leave us on a slightly more amusing note, in between the episodes is an ad for Chris's latest pipe dream. Video game, which will surely be coming out soon for Wii and PlayStation 3. Follow the hero behind the electric hedgehog as Christian W. Chandler leads his adult life. Help him find his sweetheart, take down Mary Lee Walsh and other villains of his life, and many other adventures, puzzles, and minigames await. Additional downloadable content will soon be available through the PlayStation Network. Custom Quick and Sonichu character add-ons for Soul Calibur 4 available soon. Christian Weston Chandler's Adult Chronicles, coming soon. Sonichu is copyright 2008 by Christian Weston Chandler and all subsidiaries.
So yeah, tune in next week, I guess, to find out what actually happens in the story. I'm DStecks, and I'm sorry for making you wait 2 weeks for this. Hey there, everybody. Also, I'm going to be at Fan Expo at the end of August. I'm going to be there all 4 days of the event. So if you're also planning to attend, and if you want to meet up or hang out or something, I don't know, figure something out, just drop a line on the Bad Reviews Facebook page. The link is... apparently I don't have the permissions to add external links in my annotations. The link's in the description or on my channel page. I'm DStecks, and I'll see you at Fan Expo.